Hello and welcome. Life after examinations in our dear Ghana. Now, is there ever going to be a time, as my brother asked me, Charles Abbey says, is there ever going to be a time where they write on exams and you won't call me so we discuss it? And we're not going to discuss how well they did or how fantastic, how many A's they've got. It's always going to be more practices and the huge numbers that are failing. And now, if you look at the way the nation is going, I think our only hope now is to build more traffic lights, because so far as there's a traffic light, they kind of find some sort of an employment. You pitch camp there. Where are we going to go? Because even those who pass, where do you fit them? Let alone those who fall through. There are too many children falling through the net. And you ask yourself, when is the bubble going to burst? Is it that miraculously the children in this generation are not as clever as other countries? Why are we going so wrong? And when are we going to get it so right? But sadly enough, now the teachers have even gotten involved, because the obsession to pass examinations supersedes everything, even our morality. So whatever it takes so that they pass exams, they do it. And here we are now to find out which is the way forward. When I come back, I'll introduce my guest. My name is Nana Ansah, and this is PM Express. Hello, and thank you very much for staying live after exams in Ghana. Now you have two choices. You either, manage to find yourself, to further your education, or if you're not careful, you pitch camp at a traffic light somewhere, hustling PK, shoelaces, and something that somebody's brought in from China. Very sad, the amount of brains that we are wasting in this country. Now, it's, I get very passionate, I get very emotional when we talk about education, because I am one who believes that if we don't fix it, nothing else will fall into place. Because it doesn't matter what institution you bring, what factory you bring, you would need some brain power to work with it. And the other day I said that as a nation, if somebody gave us 3 billion, the whole nation, to spend, we would need to import brain power to use it. We won't be able to build a gas plant. We won't be able to build an aeronautic, factory. We can't do anything with that 3 billion unless whoever gave us that money adds some brains to it. Now that is dangerous, because 3 billion, I don't think it's any amount of money. So for a whole nation not to have the brain capacity to spend that money, it's dangerous. And it shows today, if we look in the papers, this is the Finder, and it says WASSCE results 99, almost 100,000 failed science and math. Then the Daily Telegraph says WAEC cancels results of 2,312 candidates. So many other schools, are being put under investigations because of examination malpractices. So we have malpractices on one side, and we have failure on the other. With me in the studio, I have my brother Charles Abbey, who I haven't seen in a while. Good to see him. Charles is the head of programs for Africa Development Programs. Charles, you're welcome.
Thank you, Nana.
And then my own senior brother, Anis Hafa, who is a passionate educationist. So on a topic like this, who else do I call? I have to call him. He hasn't got a choice. I have to literally summon him to talk about this.
You're most welcome.
Anis. Anis, this morning I was quite sad, because it's just one too many. And there's two sides. So number one, it's not as if they are really trying and failing. They're actually cheating and even managing to fail while they are cheating. It doesn't get worse than that. We'll probably break it into two. We'll look at the cheating, and then we'll look at the results. I mean, everybody's just cheating. I mean, if 2,000, it's everybody's in it. Why have we gotten here?
Well, first of all, is the nature of the exams. Okay, but before we start, I would like you to see my...
I am very,
I'm trying to be like you every step of the way. You have one, I have two of them.
You see,
Your beats are bigger though, but I'm catching up with you. Okay, the first thing we have to begin to understand, it involves the nature of the examinations themselves. Typically, what we do, what I call cognitive abilities, is consistently what we test. You fill in the blanks. you take off true and false, multiple choice, and that sort of thing. Or you have to remember something that you've been told in the past. That's one way of looking at it. Our standardized examinations are based on that. As long as that continues, there will always be a tendency for someone who doesn't remember or who was not capable in some way to want to cheat. But what I'm saying is this: we are at an inflection point in education in this country where we cannot continue that way. You'll be surprised the number of times that I've been on TV stations, radio stations, discussing the same thing over the years. Today, I've had about 3 or 4 interviews along the same lines. But then let's look at a foolproof way of raising our young people.
Yeah.
Okay, we're talking about science, but there's something that you said I think that's profound. You said even those who pass, what becomes of them? Much less those who are not able to pass. That's a critical question, and I want us to address that. If you look at, again, I talk about this country. Ghana is one of the richest countries in the world, but the mindset to develop it is a problem. So what I'm saying is this: if you look at the various districts, and if you look at science, for example, why don't we direct science into an area where we are adding value to any of our natural resources? Now, the thing is this: when people are practically engaged, there's no place for cheating. There's no place to want answers to an exam because you're engaged in an activity. In fact, there are places like Denmark where they don't even do examinations at all, because right from class 1, they know exactly what your progress is. And when you leave, by the time you leave the university, they have a fantastic idea of who you are and what your capabilities are. It's a consistent assessment. But what we do here is that we wait out to the last minute, and then in an hour, that particular hour of examination can make or break you. That in itself is something that we have to address in this country, because I don't think we are thinking properly if you consistently do something that's not working for us. That's one. The other thing, also look at mathematics.
Okay. Let me just interject. Most of these doctors and all these letters have had the benefit of studying outside, and they realize that examination was not so intimidating. Why is it that when they come back, I mean, it's as though you have to fail. I mean, we are setting this exam to make sure that the least people pass. It looks as if that's what.
See, there are 2 ways to look at exam results. We can use exam results as a formative assessment. A formative assessment will tell us that, again, you look at the statistics, that we had 120,300 students fail science. Whose fault is it? Is it the way they were taught? Is it how they were taught? Or is it a lack of the teaching and learning materials? So the question is, who owns the problem? But here in this culture, the first thing we do is to heap the blame on the victim. The victims are the young people that we are leading astray. But invariably, they are the ones who have to suffer for it. Now, a formative assessment will tell you that, wait a minute, the way that we are teaching these kids, 120,000 of them will fail. So we cannot continue doing that. We have to teach them a different way. That's what a sensible formative assessment does. But for us, we don't use assessments that way. We use assessments for punitive measures. That here, you have failed and you're doomed. I mean, every child in this country matters. Every young person in this country matters. And like you were saying, if we have $3 billion, I'm telling you, bring Ghana $3 billion, come back in a year, the money will have disappeared. Because we don't have the mindset that can groom young people so they can begin to do some of the things that you're talking about. So these are the critical issues. But now, though, what I'm saying is this: we have to begin to reorient education away from the academics. It's very important. It hasn't worked for us. When Ghana became independent, I was 10. I was in class 3. Consistently, we are underdeveloped. We are begging for money. We are borrowing for money. Somebody somewhere has to tell us that the thing that we're doing is not working. So what I'm saying is this: Ghana is so naturally endowed that the focus on science has to be key. The other thing is that as you are beginning to do things and you have excitement about what it is that you're doing, it's a sense of purpose, a sense of fulfillment. My brother, where are you going to steal exam questions for? These are the legitimate questions that we have to ask in this country every day so that we move away from this system that doesn't work for us anymore.
Charles? Now the teachers have joined in the fray. I mean, there are schools where the teachers now literally go out seeking and finding the exam papers and then, bring it to the schools and lock the students somewhere and teach them, so that they pass. Where from it and how do we stop it?
Nana, a very good evening to our cherished viewers, and it's my pleasure to meet Anis Hafa. I've been reading. I was just telling him backstage that I've not had a time to read his write-up for today, but when I get home, I'll read it, and it's my privilege to meet him this evening. My regret is that when I meet such profound thinkers like him, who have an idea as to what the issues are, a diagnosis of the issues are, unfortunately, they are not the persons in policy-making positions to effect the change. Across this table, I'm the youngest, and I have some regrets that the kind of country that the older generation, especially those entrusted with public policy responsibility, are living for us is nothing to write home about. And I want to draw this in relation to even plans that are afoot for a 40-year development plan. I ask myself, Anis mentions a very profound issue that at age 10, I'm sure if I add plus or minus 50 years, okay, he's gone through the system, and this is someone who has had the benefit of other places, and he sees that no, the template we are working with is not working for us. Yet, persons entrusted with public responsibility to see that enough is enough. Let's reinvent the wheel, look at what others have done that have propelled them to the point where they want to be, and then let's get the results we are expecting. And you tell me you want to do a 40-year development, and I ask myself, where do we want to see this country in the next 40? Are you looking at it in your tainted lens of having done the same things with and not having received different results, and then you want to think for a new 40 years for me and my descendants? But having given this introductory remarks, you agree with me that for the past few days on BBC, there have been documentaries on Singapore, Singapore at 50. And in all of the documentaries I've been watching, the analysis, there's always a reference to the brain power in Singapore. The brain power to the extent that as a country, they identify that if there was anything they needed to do, because they don't have all of the natural resources we have, and they decided to ensure that they are training minds that can build their country to the level they want. And so they invested in educational institutions. They organized their training such that science and technology was driving it. And in their next 50 years, they are talking of becoming a smart country where technology and science drives all that they do. Take a look at the tertiary sector in Ghana. From KNUST to UDS to University of Ghana to Central University to Valley View, almost everybody is now doing liberal arts courses, shifting away from their core mandate. So even as these failures are happening at the secondary level, as they dovetail into the tertiary level, they are not undertaking training programs that will help us solve the real problems we are facing as a country. So indeed, it spirals into other issues that becomes what we are confronted with. Malpractices. It's sad that is happening. What happens to statistics that tells us more than 50% are Christians and about 20-something plus are Muslims? We go to church on Saturday, Sunday. We go to the mosque on Fridays. The traditional religious believers are there. So what has happened to the values, the value system in this country where from the parents to the teacher to even the individual? I'm sure we all know of the honor code system that is practiced in the US. To the extent that the child is imbibed with those values that his conscience will not serve him right to want to cheat. But like Anis Riley mentions, it is because of the template we are working with that has not worked, and we consistently, he fell short of defining it as madness. But exactly that's what it means. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results until the individual, being the parents at the home level, the teacher, even the policymakers, ingrain in our educational system the values that lets the child or the student acknowledge that, look, it is not about making the A or making the B, but I have to give off my best. And we'll have to address another angle of the problem. I'm sure when we enter into the discussions deeper, we will look at that aspect as well.
I like something I said, because I was away for 2 weeks and I was, had to take this little girl to a cinema. She's only 11. And I desperately wanted a movie that would happen in the afternoon so that I can rest in the evening. I didn't want anything close to 6 o'clock and sit in the cinema hall till 8 or whatever it is. So there's a man standing there and there's a teddy bear next to you. I thought, wow, this must be a kid's movie. So I said, oh, let's go and buy a ticket for this one. He says, no, it's 15. I said, no, it doesn't say on there. I said, trust me, I've seen the advert, it's 15. I said, what about, I'm accompanying you? He says, no, I'm only 11, I can't go, it's 15. You know, so I was thinking, I was maybe I must have, well, if it's 15, let's forget about it, because I'm not watching any movie in the evening. But I was asking, you know, how do we get somebody to be that responsible to say, no, I'm not allowed to do this because I'm not that age? I mean, Senior, you have to help me. How do you train a child to say
But
that?
I'll
No.
tell you, if I were 11 and it was 15, I would like to go to see it.
When I was 11,
That's an exceptional case. He's not like the rest of us.
you know, I mean, it's called, the movie's called Ted 2. You know, there's a guy and there's a teddy bear next to it. So, I mean, the picture, it must be a child's movie. So let's go. He says, oh, no, it's 15. I look at it, I said, no, I don't think so. He says, oh, no, trust me, he's 15. You know, I'm 11, I'm not allowed to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you train?
Well, you know, I wanted to address a different question, if it's okay with you.
Yes.
Good. You know, again, I want to look at, in terms of the questions that you are raising, even those who pass, what happens to them? And then what do you do with those who fail? Now, you know, our education system, it starts in an exercise book, and it ends in an exercise book. You copy in here, you score 10 over 10, and the rest of it. That's how I was brought up. For example, in secondary school, we're talking about silkworms and what silkworms do. And this was a teacher from England at that time. They eat mulberry bushes. You have to, let's say, grow them in a particular way so you can get the silk production and make clothes out of it. Everything that we did in that respect was in an exercise book. Now let me show you what the Chinese do with silkworms. And I brought you this. While we are copying things in the notebooks, the Chinese were producing stuff. This is a scarf made out of silk, you know, production. Now I'll show you something else. They were also producing these things. Ties, silk ties. So that's the difference between their education. You're talking about Singapore and us. That's all the application of science. Now the question is this, again, back to exam results. How we are stealing questions and that sort of thing. If we are in the mode of producing things, where do you steal exam results from? Or for what purpose? Because the assessment is on reproduction. And then not only that, the enthusiasm was to even address the occupation that one day you're going to derive your livelihood from. It's all encapsulated in the science project that you're doing. There's no room for cheating. So my point is this. The time has come where, again, you also ask the question that those who are teaching their young people, some of them have had the exposure, so why don't they do the same thing here? You know, and this is the issue that I want us to address here. Typically, when you look at someone who had a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD, probably it was supported by the government. So that's their mindset, you know. But if they had to work for it, it would be a different situation. And I'll give you another instance. When I was in the US, for example, my mother was retired. My mother didn't have any money. My father was retired. So I had to fend for myself. Now check this. I enlisted in a community college. In 1 year, I was able to take, in addition to other courses, I was able to take Accounting 1 and Accounting 2. As a result of that, in 1 year, I could work as a bookkeeper. On the basis of that, I paid my regular tuition through the universities. So the mindset is very, very important. The chances are, if I've been supported with all kinds of scholarships and freebies and stuff that were done probably in the past, and now we imagine a lot of professors and doctors, and they were supported that way. But they are now, and those days, there were only a few of them now. Remember, there was a time in tech where you have one person in one room, or at most two people in one room. Now things have changed. So I don't see how, even when you do schedules, again, in the university, I was taking courses on Tuesdays and Thursdays only, and 16 units, full-time course, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I could work Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to pay my school fees. Now, those days when, if the courses are such that I have to take them on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, then I will work Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays. This is how we have to begin to raise our young people in this country, because there's work to be done. If we define what the work is. Now, if you look at typical schedules, for example, and I always cite the example of go to Kolebu or any of our government departments here. Look at the number of files that are sitting haphazardly, collecting dust. And we are teaching young people ICT. Why don't we connect the ICT to really digitizing government material? Where do you steal answers from? Why the need to steal questions? Because the chances are what you're doing results in the skills that you need in the future to apply for yourself. So as far as digitizing information, your assessment will be based on that. These are the things that we have to think about all the time. And I keep saying this, that the districts are not all endowed the same way. No. The time has come where science is key. I like what you said, as far as Singapore and the rest of it. We don't have to be exactly like them, because they don't have the lakes that we have. They don't have the corn production, the tropical forest, the foods that we grow here. They don't have the timber, they don't have the bauxite, they don't have the diamonds. But we are in such an advantageous position. But then when it comes to inspiration, that's what's lacking in this country.
Indeed, in your favorite book, Lee Kuan Yew's Third World to First, I think when he came to Ghana, he met a linguistic professor, and he was asking, with all this greenery, why are you studying linguistics? So, it boils down to, learning something which is within your locality to, make more meaning out of it.
I want to add a word to that. This was in February 1964 when he came to Ghana. And he came to Ghana for inspiration because Ghana was a dynamic country. We're supporting freedom movements in the country, in Africa. And he was very enthused. But then he came here and he saw this, that my goodness, this is an agricultural country. And your best brains are strapped behind desks doing declensions of Greek and Latin verbs. But then that was the inflection point. We missed it because that is when we could have seen the opportunity to now engage in adding value to what it is that we have, so that the science projects are all directed there. But then the other point I want to make is this. Now there's this big thing about technical universities and that sort of thing. And then we've done is say that those who don't pass well are the ones that we dump in these places. But those are the people that we need. So what I'm saying is this, and I hope the policy people are listening to this. University of Ghana should be converted into a technical university, number one. Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology should also be converted to a technical university. And University of Cape Coast should be converted into a technical university. And then let's have our best and brightest, if that's where they are, the cream of the crop, engage in projects that will be of benefit to this country. But having said that, that's just the beginning now. Those who are educating the young people themselves have to be savvy in hands-on type activities. All we do is that we assemble a few chairs and tables with a blackboard and we are teaching. Those days are gone, And, I've just, I did a little tour of Harvard and MIT. If you go into an MIT science lab, even architecture is designed where you don't sit. But there's a huge question mark there. In other words, as you come into this lab, what is your curiosity as a human being? What are your interests? What is it that spurs you on? What is your passion? So that whatever it is that you do is directed into something that can be fulfilling for you. Where you get up in the morning without someone waking you up, because there's a sense of purpose. You are in your element. These are the things that we have to begin to bring into this country. And I keep saying this. Why are our schools sitting in dust? I've said it so many times here. It doesn't make sense. We have rain. Why are we not harvesting the rain? So these are the things where education has to be targeted. If you are now if you are now helping to harvest rain in your school, where is the exam that you're going to cheat? But at the end of the day, that is a skill that you can learn to use yourself, because every house in this country needs water. So that's our way to do it. So we have to begin to develop curricular objectives that are practical, because this business of copying and reproducing for exams is what's causing this problem. So this is a symptom of a deep, deep problem, and we have to resolve it now.
I think you said something where, the people in places of power who could change it have also come through the system, and so probably are not thinking out of the box to make the change. Are we stuck? Because this is going to lead on to our 40-year plan. What sort of education do we want to see by the time Ghana is 100 years old?
Nana, you see, they might have gone through the same or similar system, but there are many times you hear them recounting, oh, the good old days, the good old days. And the last time I told Martha in the same seat, where did the good old days fly to? What happened of those good old days? Because if Anis mentions that in the US, his classes were scheduled such that he could take some courses in accounting 1 and 2, then he could earn a living by being a bookkeeper. You see, that kind of trade or profession falls in line with the service sector, because now the economy, for that matter, the American economy has grown to the point where it's not agrarian or primary economic driven, for that matter, service and manufacturing oriented. So some of these professional services are needed. So rightfully so, he would study that so he can get a trade. But for a country which is a developing country and is blessed with all of the natural resources, then you would expect that a lot more of efforts are made towards ensuring that we train our minds, our young people's minds, towards tapping into those materials, raw materials we have, to become productive as a country. We're always talking about graduate unemployment. But graduate unemployment, because they have gone through a system that has made all of us become classics, linguistics, information studies, accounting. Where are the businesses that you are going to be the bookkeepers for? The businesses themselves are not there, because the sectors where the managers of the economy and the country need to spend resources to build those sectors, so that you will find, you also craft courses or training to meet those sectors, so you can engage their head, their hearts, and their hands in the educational process. Then you can now create these other liberal arts programs where you have the marketers, the accountant, and all of those persons to meet to those places. But you are not doing that, and yet you expect that National Accreditation Board, National Council for Tertiary Education will keep giving accreditation to all the tertiary institutions to be running all of the liberal arts courses we have in this country. I ask myself that growing up in this country, what stake do I have in a country where when you go to a place called Busuafisi in Gasouth Municipality, it's an entirely a rural community where there are farmers, a lot of cassava is produced in that municipality, a lot of pineapple is grown in that municipality. And yet, you don't find any serious business that is growing up in that area to tap into these resources. If this was happening and we have oriented our education towards competency-based and skills training, such that we move away from the filling the gaps, filling the blank spaces, then all of these are institutions that will provide the opportunity for the students who are being trained to use their hands and their heads and their hearts. So at the end of the day, it will not be for WAEC to come and tell us that, okay, Nana Nsa pass English A, social studies this. No, it won't need that. Of course, I'm not disputing the fact that we need to train them up in some of these language or these courses so that they can. We live in a community of nations. English, we have to communicate well and all of those things. But that shouldn't be our focus, our orientation. Look at the political parties. For that matter, those who have occupied government. One person will come and say, "I'll do it 4 years." Another person will come and say, "I'll do it 3 years." And then a favorite terminology on a radio station, political gambadoism, playing chaskele with us. So then even the children become an object, like a toy in the hands of the policymakers, experimenting. But you ask yourself, these are individuals who have been beneficiaries of Nkrumah's-free education from primary school up to secondary school, even to the university, and you expect them to be thinking of solutions that will make the Ghana they came to meet better than they even inherited. And this is where we find ourselves. So for me, yes, the children who have failed, we say they have failed, are not to be written off entirely. It's about time that...
We don't have a plan to fit people in. Anytime I get to Fiesta Royal traffic light, I panic. And I'm asking, is there any other door for these people to come back into the system?
We said we organized NOVDEC for them. We organized NOVDEC for them. And the statistics, I was just checking through, and it will interest you to know that there's almost parity between candidates who register for the main exam and those who register for the NOVDEC. Imagine that in 2012, you had 174,385 students sitting for the main June exam. And then for the NOVDEC, you have 176,618.
Hey.
2011, you have 149,175 for the May, June, and then you have 138,790. These are staggering figures because I have
They just registered twice.
Exactly. My sister, two of my sisters, they before they got to the final year, they registered for the NOVDEC.
Just in case.
Just in case. Just in case. Why? So what happens? What happens? And you see, I was mentioning at the beginning of the discussion that this also dovetails to the tertiary level. It spirals into it. Imagine that the few numbers who manage to get into the tertiary institutions, and then you see those we churn out across the polytechnics and tertiary institutions. We are churning out close to 80,000 graduates. And then we come back to tell ourselves that the public sector and the private sector collectively employ about 20% of this graduates. So what happens to the 80%? It tells you that it is the symptoms of the training they have received right from the secondary level to the tertiary level, because it has made them more or less unproductive, useless in quotes. Because having gone through the system, he will come out, join an Unemployed Graduates Association of Ghana, because he has read accounting. There are no businesses for him to be an accountant or an accounts clerk. He has read marketing. Where are the businesses he's going to do the marketing? And he's just there, not doing anything. So if we don't say to ourselves as a country that enough is enough, this is the starting point we want to do this, change, re-engineering. If there's any word like a better word than re-engineer, we want to re-engineer educational institutions, educational system, oriented towards the competency-based and science-driven, such that we will not now rely on passing, fill in the blank spaces, true or false, and then at the end of the day, if you are the person who can do a copycat, a member of my staff was telling me this evening before I came here that they wrote a quiz. She's studying with a UCC, and whilst they were preparing for the exam, someone was learning the answers. Learning the answers without questions. So when they sat down, in a matter of 15 minutes, the person had finished.
Produced.
Just like that. Why are we doing this to ourselves as a country?
Now, I wanted to address a question that you asked, that when you are the Fiesta corner there, what's going to happen to these kids? Those kids are if you look at the statistics, if you look at the 61,000 that failed in English, the 98,000 that failed in integrated science, and the 120,000 that failed in mathematics, those are the kids you're talking about.
Yeah.
But the question is this: how were they taught? Are they the cognitive type learners? They might not be. So again, when you look at formative assessment, those are the questions that come to your mind. How else could we have taught these people so that they were functional? And Ghana, we are so lucky. We've got everything. So what I'm saying is this: right from if you look at the Ghana Education Service syllabus, the science component has to be driven, has to drive the curriculum in every district so that they have skills. Who would like to leave a skill and come to Accra to carry things on their heads? And then there was a friend of mine who sells newspapers on the street. He's been selling it all his life. I mean, what I'm saying is this: the time has come now where we have to develop a certain sensitivity. But that's the African problem, though. African problem is where you ask an interesting question, where we just mind ourselves. We don't care for the other person. As far as my stomach is full, that is it. But when the leaders begin to think like that, it's dangerous, because that's why we don't have great people in Africa. My goodness. The other time, someone was saying that if we were to count, since Ghana, since the 60s, we've had about over 200 leaders in Africa. If we were to count 5 good ones on one hand, objectively, and subjectively, you count 5, that's 10. What happened to 190 of them? Why are they not great? It's the mindset that we do not do for other people. It was when I was in the School of Education in the US that I realized how important children were to the people who were teaching them.
Let me take a break here now, and then when I come back, you join the fray, because I'm sure maybe your ward was in a school. What are they doing? Are they studying? Are they not being taught well? You can join in, and let's hear your take. So don't move. While we are trying to address our disheartening and I don't know, apathy towards education. And as you were standing behind the screens, I don't even think it's number one on our priority. You know, we're thinking of other things, infrastructure. And I keep saying that you look at a road like Accra to Kumasi Road, and it's got speed ramps on it. Can you imagine? You build a road from Accra to Kumasi, the whole idea to commute there as fast as possible. And because we allow people to put their markets there, because if they don't allow them, they won't vote for you, we put speed ramps on it to slow us down so that we don't run them down. So everything seems to be a little bit disjointed, but education is key. And I think Anis sent me a video once about a guy who's trying to open the door, and he's opening the door, and he's opening the door, and the door won't open. And then somebody comes, and then he pulls it. And he says, education opens doors. Education is the key.
Right. And because there was a sign
that says pull.
Right.
But then he couldn't read it.
The first one couldn't read it, yeah.
Yeah, so he was pushing.
Yeah, he was going to break it down.
And then somebody just walked, read the sign, and then opened the door. And as simple as it sounds, that's where we find ourselves. And as I was talking about, you know, how, you know, you're talking about, you know, you're going to school and working, but we don't want, as soon as somebody goes to Legon, you know,
Right.
they are high fly.
That's it. You see, we are creatures of habits. And all through the person's life, 16 years out of Legon, the person has not worked a day in his life. He's now 21, 22. To go and work now is too late. There was a program that I used to do in the U.S. called the Gifted and Talented Education. We start getting young people to work class 1. They are working on projects. They are working on projects to see where in another 2 or 3 years where they will take that particular project to. It's work. And when they've done that, then it's you give them the space where they can now attract people so they can do presentations for them. What it means is that they are marking a position in their lives where they will be directed to in the future. And even if they change their minds, they've learned skill that they can transfer to others. For us, you see, class 1, you are sitting. JHS 1, you are sitting. Senior high school, you are sitting. University, you are sitting. Suddenly work, it doesn't work. So what is happening here is that we have monumental titles and heavy-duty degrees. People are locked behind their doors because they are not used to work. So these are the things that we need to address through the education system.
0302-211-701-702-704. 0302-211-701-702-703-704. Get your calls in. But I know we won't exhaust this subject today, but I wish and I hope my producers will bring it back, because we haven't even gone to how we fit it into this 40-year development plan. We're just even trying to touch the basis. But let me speak to Richard. Hello, Richard.
Yes, sir.
Richard, you're on air. Let me hear your take on this issue.
I believe your panelists are making very, very incisive contributions to the program. In fact, our educational system has been a problem. And I believe that as Senior Anis Safa is saying, if we can bring a lot more technical or practical education to the system, the whole system of asking students to continue to read and answer examination questions. You see, now students are examination conscious.
Yeah.
And that is why students will always continue to look for apport from WhatsApp and other places. If the issue is to be practical, then nobody will have the love for apport and all that, and the examination and all that. So I believe that the issue of the practicalness of our education should be emphasized.
Thank you very much. I'm sure if we also go in there and I was to make a table and you were to make a chair and the other one was to make a sofa, it would be very difficult for us to copy. But Leonard, let me hear you. Hello, Leonard.
Yeah, I'm very much happy about this program.
Thank you.
I always listen to your program, and there's one thing that I would like to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it has become something like a talk shop. Do we really jot down all these fantastic ideas that you people bring out, and give it to the policymakers and make sure that they follow exactly what you people are discussing. Because like we talk about this, we keep on this gentleman who is here, always come on this program. He talks about this very issue over and over and over again. And it's the same mistakes that our policymakers over and over and over again they make. Do we really come out with these policies, give it to them, make sure that they follow to the letter all that we discuss on television and everywhere? Because it appears like fantastic ideas are discussed and it ends there.
Emmanuel,
So I am so much disturbed about the way these things are being done. So I'll be very happy if these discussions are done, and at the end of it, we the listeners will see that the things are being done. Give it to the policymakers, they follow it to the letter, and then we see the results. Because these are fantastic ideas that you are bringing out. At the end of the day, next year let's come back, we'll discuss these same results again. So it becomes something like, are we wasting the time or we are spending the time? So I'll be very happy if we take up all these issues critically, and we make sure those who are up there, who are making the policies for us, they follow it to the letter. And then we all follow it and make sure that they are well implemented.
Thank you.
Otherwise, the same thing all the time.
Emmanuel, thank you very much for that. Let me speak to June. Hello, June.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, Nana, I'm a teacher in Yindi, and I agree exactly with what the chairman is telling us. You see, like Ghana here, we are glorifying that A4 sheet called certificate. So the students you see, there's that kind of glorification in certificates. So we are piling degrees upon degrees. By the end of it all, there's nothing like productivity. You sit from P1 up to university. So if you are brought to work, I think that's why everybody wants to work at the office. So there's no practicality in our education system. So at least we should do something about this. So I agree exactly with what the man is telling us.
Thank you very much. Let me take Fred, who's going to be my last caller. Hello, Fred.
Hi. Good evening.
Good evening, my brother. Yeah.
I believe in practical studies because personally, I'm very good at, let's say, this tick thing that Ghana is doing. But I realized at a point in the university that this thing, like you picking an exam and let's say you are mastering how to pass and forget, was not helping me. So what I did was that, what I asked myself a question: what am I leaving the school with? You see, my parents have paid, and I've also suffered. What am I leaving the school with so that when I get out there,
Oh, sorry, I dropped the call there, but let me, we're running out of time, and as I said, I hope my producers will bring this team together, because then our next one is, once we have ironed out the creases, we find out how we fit this in that 40-year plan, what we want to see in the 40-year plan. But back to today's issues, the egos of our students, it's a bit overwhelming, Charles.
You see, when our colleagues finish, our younger ones finish school, they are quick to want to print T-shirts. Hey, class of 2015, class of 2016, SSC graduates. They are so excited. And I ask myself, all that you have gone to do in school, what one thing can you point to as having transformed your life to make you a better person for society, to contribute to the development of your country? And it's disheartening that when you engage with them, their perspective to life at that level is not even oriented towards seeing the importance of nation building, working for the growth of the country, and also building a livelihood that others can benefit from. I think that I would agree with you when some of our prescriptions to address this problem is that maybe as a country, we would decide that for the next 2 years, let's close down all the schools. Let's rethink the solutions. Let's re-engineer the issues. How do we progress as a country for the next 5 years? how do we want to go forward with building the brain power of the people we have in this country. And I believe we can do that. And once we are having these discussions, I want to tie in with something that,
briefly,
yes, one of our colleagues mentioned. Yes, maybe the policy makers may not be listening. Maybe we are unable to write down the issues for them to read. But you out there watching and listening, you will take inspiration from these issues. And when the policy maker comes back to you wanting your votes, then you are in a better position to ask the right questions, to interrogate what plan he has for the country.
1 minute, close my show for me.
Right. I mean, I want to address the question you asked, the 40-year development program, whatever it is.
No, I'll bring you back in. So just briefly, and then I'll bring you back in.
Briefly, what I'm saying, if a person's back is pushed against the wall, someone who's not been taught properly, someone who doesn't have faith in the education system itself, the chances are they would like to beat the system. And you beat the system by stealing. So the idea by stealing questions, the issue is that we have to begin to look at the best practices and converge that to what's more suitable for Ghana. But no matter what, we have to learn to use our hands. Hands are the best teachers. Simple as that.
Well, thank you very, very much. Unfortunately, that's all time will allow us. But like I keep saying, I hope my producers will bring this team back, because this hasn't ended. This is a necessary subject that we need to explore more. Even look at the teaching. You know, we can just focus more on the teachers and the teaching. That would be good. Say thank you very much to Azelu, who's directing and shouting in my ear. Thank you very much. Jennifer and Nee, who put the production together. And also to Tantis, who makes my shirt. Tantis Fashion is on 024-366-2001. 024-366-2001. Thank you very much, Charles. Thank you very much, Anis. My name is Nana Ansakwa. Tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again. Thank you.